Mr. Jasti is joining in 2 minutes.
Okay.
But we can start if you have to.
Yeah, fine. I think
time है ना क्या time
Akhilesh, can we start out?
Yes, sir. We can start, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
No, yeah, okay. So I think thank you all. I think it's a very special pleasure for me to invite and welcome Jayesh Ranjan. I think you have to, some of you will have to do the audio muting, please. Shailaja, next slide, please.
Sir, before I continue, I just want to take your permission to record this.
Jayesh ji, can we record this? Do we have your permission to record this, please?
Yeah, certainly. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. And all other participants, I am taking your permission to record this. Next slide, Shailaja. First of all, I would like to quickly take you for a few minutes to talk about this concept of FICCI Dialogue for Actionable Insights. This is a new model we created in the last 2 months. The first meeting we had was with SBI chairman had come to Hyderabad. And this is a new concept which we are now introducing between FICCI and various people we are dialoguing. Today, we'll be dialoguing with 3-4 people who are very good experts in their respective areas. And our chief guest today is Jayesh Ranjan. Next slide. Shailaja, next slide, please. Yeah. So about me, I am the chairman of TMI Group and also FICCI chair for Telangana. I'm also a member of MSME National Board. I've been there for the last 5 years, and therefore some of the thoughts expressed here are also based on my exposure at national level. Very warm welcome to Jayesh Ranjan ji. Why is Jayesh? Obviously, I think many of you know, is the most approachable, knowledgeable, and very successful industry secretary that we have till date. He has been a friend of the industry. And with him, can you mute, please? I request all of you to mute, please, other than Jayesh ji and our panelist. I request all of them to mute. He's been a friend of the industry, and anybody in the industry, you ask them, they say, I know Jayesh, I can speak to him, he responds to SMS. And he has been a very, very close friend of the industry. The other advantage about him, he has the qualifications of IIM Calcutta. He has been in Telangana, a very active face of the new government. And the advantage is also we can speak without being fear of being misunderstood. He's a great listener. And today I'm very grateful that he found time to be with us. I also want to give a warm welcome to 3 partners and panelists. I'm using the word partner carefully because all the 3 of them, FTCCI, CGM of SBI, and Dr. Bakshi of ASCII. So we have now, this event is a partnership between FTCCI, FICCI, ASCII, and SBI. So some of the thoughts which are presenting, we have done some discussions and we are bringing them together. And we are also going to ask these panelists to discuss and share some thoughts as we go along. A very warm welcome to invitees and dignitaries from all these organizations, and a huge round of applause to our 2 sponsors, without whom we wouldn't be here today. Thank you. Next slide. The format of FIDI is very different from normally many of the conversations that you have seen, both on the offline model and the online model. We believe that discussion should be in a partnership mode. It is not like I have a criticism of somebody, I want to find fault with somebody. The whole concept has to be a partnership mode. We should ask questions to each other. We should be able to create constructive discussions and dialogues on one key issue at a time. And today the issue is on MSME revival and MSME growth. More than revival, it's about expanding and making Telangana the golden state for MSME. So the FIDI model is to invite a partnership or a constructive dialogue on one issue with a set of experts. The purpose is to develop deep insights. It's not just a conversation without insights. So we will be hopefully extracting some insights from this today's discussion. Therefore, the focus is on asking very direct questions on issues and seek candid replies. I know that some of the replies cannot be given in a public forum. So Jayesh has the power, or anybody else in this group can say, I cannot discuss it here, and we should maybe accept that, his choice. The success of the event will be measured, in my mind, by the quality of the questions and the candidness of the answers that we get from all of us, including JSG. Next slide. This is the agenda for today. I'm setting up very briefly the context. 4 key concerns I've selected for JSG to reply. 1 key concern for FTCCI President Justice Saab, 1 concern to be replied by SBS CGM, and 1 concern by ASCII in charge Director General Dr. Bakchi. And then we are giving a few suggestions from all of our interactions. We're suggesting a few things for Telangana government to consider to make this state the golden state. And we're going to seek a response from each of the panelists for 5 minutes. And then we go over to the questions from the audience. There's a lot of questions that have come. I have more than 27 questions already. So we might select a few questions and then I might read out some of the questions with their name. And then we will ask this question to the panelist. And lastly, a vote of thanks and summary of the session by Shri Murli Krishna Reddy, our co-chair for FICCI Telangana. So this is the broad agenda for today. Next slide. Now the context. If you look at the context, this is the best of times for MSME sector ever. I have been an MSME entrepreneur for the last 30 years. And I would say for the first time in the history of our company, in the history of India, MSME has got center stage. And I would like to thank 2 people today, Nitin Gadkari, who's the cabinet minister for MSME, an amazing human being, a great minister. He has been interacting with the MSME industry and various forums, and his optimism and energy has been very, very, very visible and infectious. In fact, I would like to thank actually Kalraj Mishra, who the first cabinet minister rank we got from the MSME. Earlier, we had a lot of Minister of State, and he's the second person after him. So this is the best of time because Nitin Gadkari has taken a lot of initiative for MSME, including the redefinition of MSME. We also have a very progressive and proactive government of Telangana. I think many of us in this room would like to acknowledge that this is one state which has only one mindset. We want to be the best in whatever we do. Whatever the state does, they want to be the best. I don't think we can ask for any other state to live in or practice a business. So we want to again acknowledge this fact. This is the best of times. The worst of times is there are several things that are happening at the same time. One, the slowdown of the economy already, which we saw, and more specifically for MSMEs in the pre-COVID era. Second, the COVID and the huge lockdown. I think nobody expected the lockdown to last that long. It was originally expected to be 15 days. It went for a longer time. It paralyzed the industry. Several factors are what paralyzed. Huge funds constraint at the state and central government on one side because of the double whammy. On one side, poor tax collections. On the other side, you have to redistribute the money towards the poor who are impacted heavily by the lack of funds. The direct cash transfer, Telangana government had given a lot of food and support to the migrants. So a lot of money had to be spent on very things that were unbudgeted. So there is a direct double whammy, which is also responsible for the worst fund constraint we can ever think of. The restart challenges has never been seen. It has never been a lockdown of this nature. We are doing it for the first time. The world is doing it for the first time. India is doing it for the first time. Telangana is doing the first time restarting from a complete stop, except for essential services. Now, all of this have come together again for the first time. So this is the worst of times and the best of times. Next slide. This is the context. Few initial statistics before we go on to JSG for specific questions. These are some of the data which we have collected. About 26 lakh MSMEs are in Telangana, out of which a large portion, 22 lakhs, are in micro, 10,000 small and 1,000 are medium. I'm sure this data may be outdated, may be correctable. Maybe, again, I need somebody to mute the mic, please. Yeah. So, and this is the, in terms of employment, the interesting fact about this, 40 lakh people are employed, but out of that, women are constituting 38% in Telangana, which is again a very important reason why we should make sure the MSME industry doesn't shut down or collapse. The majority of the MSMEs in manufacturing are in a few sectors like pharma, biotech, aerospace, and defense. but I'm not able to get similar data on service sector. Obviously, IT will be there, no doubt about it. But apart from IT, I don't have any reliable data on the largest 4 or 5 service sectors apart from IT and ITS. MSME in the state also enjoy 24-hour quality of power supply, adequate industrial water, and are located in and around urban areas. Now, this is again a very, very, very important attribute for success of enterprises. And this is again a very peculiar and very unique thing for the state of Telangana. Telangana state also started a special clinic called Telangana Industrial Health Clinic, primarily for revival of sick units. I'm not so sure at this point of time have they achieved any scale. I think this is a very good initiative to look at revival and have a specialized clinic which looks after their revival options and work with entrepreneurs to revive them. Next slide, please. So if you have to sum up what are the problems MSMEs face, and this is generally universal, and some of them may be applicable for Telangana. Number one, limited markets of operation. Many of them, example, an SME or MSMEs in Hyderabad, how many of them are national? How many of them are international? How many of them are global? How many of them operate across multiple states? We don't know. But my first comment was, by and large, many of them stick to markets that they know. And growth comes always from going beyond what you know and what you're comfortable with. The second, non-level playing field. We all know the challenges of MSMEs vis-a-vis large corporations, and also from international parties who are dumping products into India. Excessive competition. We all know about China. Many MSMEs are also facing competition from China. Shortage of working capital and equity for expansion. Limited skills in management staff and labor. This is one of the biggest problems which we have discovered, that there is a continuous migration of quality talent from MSME to large sector. Promoter limitation. Many promoters suddenly realize the company has grown beyond their imagination and capability. Poor technology adoption in production and as well as in processes. Now, there are several challenges. This is the context in which we are going to discuss today with Jayesh Ranjan. Next slide, please. So some of the key concerns I've broken up and I've distributed to the various panelists. The first 4 are going to be with Jayesh Ranjan ji. Next slide. The first concern is for Jayesh ji. The economy is in a serious shutdown mode. And we are now talking about revival. We all know the restart has to be engineered and planned. It cannot be an automatic switch on, switch off mode, and especially so for the MSME sector. The restart would not be possible without active partnership between the government and the industry. So my first question, and these are some of the thoughts which I would like Jayesh ji to reflect on. What role can the industry play in building a partnership? It's not a one-way. We cannot tell the government what should the government do without we discussing what we should be doing. And we would also like to hear your plans for co-creation of the restart with the industry. These are first 2 points. There are 4 more slides. Jayesh ji, over to you. Time approximately for each question is for you is about 4 to 5 minutes. Over to you, sir.
No, are there more concerns which you want to take together, or?
All right. Then I can show you all the 4. If you want to read it, I can show all the 4 and come back to number 1.
Yes. Let us read all the 4 and then,
all right.
and then answer together.
Fine. So second slide, please. There are rumors of a second lockdown. Already the SMEs are feeling under tremendous pressure of the first lockdown. So we want to know what are the government views on it, and what can the industry do to communicate our concerns on the second lockdown more effectively and more efficiently. Third slide. Third is about labor, industrial and agricultural labor. All of us know the restart is possible. Full restart will happen only when the labor comes back. So we want to know more about government plans of getting the labor back, and what should the industry do? Industry also has the responsibility of retention. I think last time when we met the chief secretary, he was saying the same thing, that industry has a responsibility to treat labor as a partner in our business. And therefore, we have to take a lot more action. So we want to hear from you what we should do to retain them. And the fourth slide. Recently, KTR Garu, in a meeting with FICCI leadership, uh, answered a question. He said that the state government outstandings has been a biggest issue. A lot of queries also came both on the incentives. I've also got a lot of messages about state government's refunds on sales tax. So whereas government dues are there on these two accounts. Apart from that, there are also payments due to vendors. There was asked a question to him saying, can we adjust the state payments? What are the dues of the state government to be adjusted against state payments? And when he said, okay, we'll work on this idea, I think you were also there in the FICCI conference when the national leadership spoke to him. So we want to know about the progress on this idea. Can the industry do to achieve this? The idea is that everybody is saying we must acknowledge the dues first and then find a way of making the payment. If there is no money, at least make an adjustment of the payment due. So these are the four questions. Ji, is it clear? Can I go back to the first question?
No, you don't need to. I know all the four questions now.
All
so,
right.
Thank you very much for organizing this interaction and bringing the important concerns, the pressing concerns of the MSME industry in particular to my notice. Now, I will answer all these questions, but I'll also add a few additional points to give certain direction to what we all need to do together if our MSMEs have to really shine in the post-COVID scenario as well. Now, the very first question about how does the industry help itself in the restart process? When the activities, industrial activities have been permitted to restart, we know that every industry, no industry specifically has been able to restart 100%. There are some bottlenecks or the other, and some of these bottlenecks may persist for some period of time. So what can be done to ensure that industries take care of their long-term sustainability and their long-term interest? So three suggestions in this regard. I have mentioned these points earlier also, and I know that a few industry associations have started working on those points. Now, the first is that every industry has been impacted because of COVID in different ways. So let us say the steel industry has some kind of disturbances and consequences because of COVID. The consumer goods industries has some kind of problems. Food processing industries has some kind of problem. So first of all, every industry needs to study what exactly has been disrupted the most and what is it that we need to do to rectify that situation. So I'll just give an example. There are certain industries where lots of raw material comes from outside. The raw material are not available in Telangana. Either the manufacturers are not available or the distributors are not available. And therefore, when this lockdown, etc., happened and all the transportation systems were affected, they had tremendous difficulty in getting the raw material. And even now, while the lockdown is relaxed completely and transport of goods has been permitted, some of the supply chain has still not been able to be restored with 100% efficiency. So the suggestion to that kind of an industry vertical is that is it possible to work with the government to find out who are these large manufacturers or suppliers of those raw material, and can we invite them to Telangana? So I will give you a concrete example which will help you understand. Now, there are large number of mills in this state, particularly mills which deal with rice milling, dal milling, and so on and so forth. And as you know, our state government has invested heavily into irrigation, and therefore the agriculture production, the agriculture productivity is at record level. And therefore the milling capacity that we have in our state is also not sufficient. There is a need to have more and more such mills. Now, typically in the season, the milling season, one of the very important ingredients or components is gunny bags. These are jute bags in which all the milled produce is kept. And the entire distribution of that rice, etc., milled rice happens because of availability of gunny bags. Now, all of you would know that jute is typically available in this Bangladesh, Bengal region, Assam to some extent, and large number of mills, practically 95 to 99% of the mills are located in Bengal. So the rice millers of this state faced a typical challenge, a peculiar challenge in this season, that because the mills got closed in Bengal, there was no availability of jute bags. Now, one is, of course, how do you immediately solve this problem? So they found some biomedia solution of using what are called HTP bags, or what are called, these are called sacks, woven sacks. So they have utilized them, but that is not the best solution to store and preserve and maintain the quality of rice, given the fact that rice from Telangana is transported all over the country. So we have then, with the help of some of these millers, found out who are the big jute mills in Bengal, and we have been able to successfully motivate two of them to set up their manufacturing facility in Telangana. And that will happen as soon as maybe things become normal. Their teams will come, they will select the site, and subsequent other incentives, etc., will be sanctioned for them. But the point is that from becoming dependent on Bengal and supplies coming from Bengal, we have now taken a step to become self-sufficient in Telangana itself. So every association needs to examine, are we dependent on certain things which we can produce locally? And if we have to produce locally, what can the government do? So in the case of jute manufacturing companies, we have offered land to them at a discounted price. We have given them some kind of incentives. But most importantly, we have given them a buyback assurance. Whatever jute bag you produce in the state of Telangana, the government will buy it from you. So since we have created a 100% assured market, that has given them that confidence to come this far. And even if the raw material has to still come from Bengal, they're willing to arrange for that and do the production here. The second thing is there certain bottleneck in terms of labor availability? You have already mentioned that as a separate question, but I can, I can club that point here itself. There are many industries where the ability to restart at 100% capacity is not happening because people are not there. People have gone back. Of course, why have they gone back? Why? What we should have done to prevent them going back and all that? I will answer much more directly when that question comes. But right now, I can tell you that in case there are such dependencies on outside labor, or as we call migrant labor, can we think of other alternatives? What is it that this labor does? Are they doing something which is so skilled that it cannot be done locally? So, for example, again, to continue with the example of this rice millets, there is a particular process involved in which the harvested paddy is bagged into these rice bags. And apparently, there is a community in Bihar which has that expertise of doing this kind of cutting and bagging, etc., etc. And no one else can do this kind of a job. Similarly, we have some number of sugarcane cultivation in this state. There are sugarcane factories, sugar factories, as all of us know. Again, they rely on Tamil Nadu labor. People come from Tamil Nadu who for generations have been doing this. They have developed the expertise of cutting the cane quickly and loading it and stuff like that. So we have to answer two questions. Number one, is it not possible to train or create a local pool of manpower who can do that? What does it take? If Tamil Nadu labor comes at, let us say, 100 rupees per day, can you not offer 150 rupees per day to the local people and encourage them to learn that skill, etc.? The second possibility is that of automation. If labor is coming from outside and then they disappear one day and then they don't come back and they create a situation of crisis for you, should it not look at automated solutions? Is there some process automation which you should look at? Which can, is there some mechanical device which you should purchase or procure, or can the industry association work with some innovators who can create some devices through which all these things can be, mechanical devices through which some of these things can be automated? So the whole point is that the industry associations should look at where have they been hit the hardest. Is it raw material? Is it labor? Have your markets collapsed? For example, there are certain products where there is no immediate market because of the consumer behavior change. Many consumers, as we all know, are very typically when such kind of calamities happen, consumers also become very conservative, very spendthrift. So, for example, let us say if I used to buy 10 shirts every year, now I may think that why should I buy 10 shirts every year? Maybe I should buy only 4 shirts a year. So there will be some amount of conservativeness in my thinking, my behavior. So is there any particular sector which has got impacted due to consumer behavior changes and some other kind of bottlenecks? What is the solution for them? One solution is that can I use the technology that I have, the production technology, but shift to some other products. You may be aware that many textile companies, since there is a reduction in textile demand, have shifted to manufacturing these masks, face masks, and PPEs and other things. So, can you change your line of activity because the market has gone down, or can you expand your market? So, for example, so far you were only supplying your products in Telangana. Can you do something digitally? Can you get online? Can you create a website? Can you expand your market, and so on and so forth? So these are the multiple ways in which associations of industries have to look at it, because this is not an individual problem. There is no one industry. So let us say there are 500 textile and apparel industry units in Telangana. All 500 of them have to collectively tell that these seem to be the solution for them. Suppose there are fiberglass industries, 1,000 of them. They have to discuss together. Rice mills, there are 500 of them. So every industry vertical should sit together, look at where they have been affected the most, dive deeper into it. What is the cause of that disturbance or that disruption? What can be done? And if there is something which they want the government to do. So, for example, I gave you the example of the jute mills. If they come to Telangana, the government will give land. So they must tell us that I'm willing to bring suppliers from Gujarat to Telangana. Can you create a package of incentives for them? I'll be very happy to do that. That will be a very, very important thing for us to do. So this is the formula, this is the template which I would like industry associations in different verticals. But as I said, every industry has to do a micro analysis of its own situation. There is no FICCI recommendation or CII recommendation or CCI recommendation in this regard. Textiles guys have to give their recommendation. Sugar mill has to give their recommendation. People who manufacture fans, Hyderabad has a very big fan industry. The fan guys have to give their recommendation. There's a very big biscuits industry, ready-to-eat food industry. They have to give their recommendation. There is a tooling industry. They have to give their recommendations. So I should get 50, 70 such recommendations from every vertical. And then whatever best is the possible option for them, for the government to support, we'll be happy to do that.
Thank you, Jayesh. I think 2 points. I think what I heard from you: isolate the problem on a collective basis, find solutions, and where the government role is there, come back to us, and we'll be very willing to listen. That's 1 point. Second point, I think it's important why FICCIs and other federations have a role, because what one industry wants is actually not acceptable to another industry. Because there is an input-output relationship. As you know, input industry wants something, the output industry does not want it to happen because they will impact their business. So as a federation, we have a responsibility to reconcile the differences between the various end-use industries and see whether we can get a common point. But I see your point that we should not have separate labeling, a FICCI recommendation and CII, and that's why we are trying to do an industry task force model, and we're trying to bring more and more people into one platform so that we don't have multiple groups. Can you put the second slide, please? Shailaja.
No, so I know the second slide. The second slide was about is there a second lockdown happening? And if a second lockdown is happening, what exactly is happening? So first of all, I do not know the answer because these are all very speculative things. But let me also tell you that in case a second lockdown will be introduced, it will be done in the larger interest of the people. See, industry is not an island. Let us say I'm an industry. I give jobs to 100 people. The 100 people who work in my industry do not have any divine power that they will not be affected by COVID. They will not be touched by COVID. God has given them some special powers. No one has that kind of boon today. So, in the larger interest of the society, in the larger interest of the community, if any decision is going to be taken, we have to accept it. The decision will be taken considering all factors, all scientific analysis, what the health data is showing, what the epidemiological data is showing, what is the trend in the last 10, 15 days, where are the diseases coming from. So a very balanced decision will be taken at the cabinet level. They are aware about the impact of lockdown on industries, on construction, on manufacturing, on services. It is not that people are unaware about the fact that if industries are locked down, so many jobs are lost, so much of GST is lost. So it is not that these things have to be told to people or the decision makers again and again and again. But in case a decision is taken, we must reconcile to it, because it will be taken in the best interest of the people of the state. And no one can question it. I mean, your industry is not bigger than the interests of the people of the state. So that is all I will tell you. The third question was about, I guess it was about labor, that lots of people have left and all that. So I've already mentioned that in case, first of all, you should not have allowed them to go, because if you have treated them well, if you were very nice to them, see, the advantage of being in an MSME is that you can look at the workforce as a family actually. I mean, all of you are one team. Everyone should internalize right from the shop floor worker to the owner of the company. They should always be thinking about the well-being of the company, etc. But I know for sure that very few MSMEs today have this kind of working relationship or this kind of an industrial atmosphere. In fact, our Telangana Industrial Health Clinic that you pointed out, they have actually done a study on large number of MSMEs which have fallen sick. And they have identified this also as one of the reasons for industrial sickness, that the HR practices are very unprofessional. First of all, you don't take people on merits, on skills. Because I'm the owner's nephew, I'm made some general manager. Because I'm from his village, I'm given 5 jobs and stuff like that. Similarly, regardless of who you select, you don't treat them as the way a large company will treat, or just to give an example, the way Tata will treat its employees. Most of the employees are treated very shabbily. And therefore the productivity of the labor, because they are not attached to the industry, the productivity of the labor is very low. You try to follow all kinds of shortcuts. You don't pay their EPFs. You don't give them other kind of employee benefits. So all these kind of things, when the situation comes to such a level, the workers have no hope or faith on the management. They just run back, knowing very well that the workers will be the first people to be ditched or uncared or harassed or salary withdrawn or sacked. So they see no other option but to run back to their village. So once they have run back, of course, if you have been nice to them, they will come back on your own. But if you have not been nice to them, and our study on failed industries or sick MSMEs of Telangana has shown that MSE owners typically have not been nice to their workers. So if they don't come back, of course, you are only the ones who have to be blamed. But now the point is, anyway, that is history. Whatever you have not done in the past, you cannot go back in the past and redo it. But at least be careful about the future. Think about your workers as your assets. Treat them with respect. Don't deny their rights. They have to be given EPF. They have to be given all those minimum wages. And if you're doing overtime, don't kind of exploit them. In the Atmanirbhar package, one very good point has been introduced, which is that if you develop housing for the workers, you are eligible for subsidies. There is I don't recall the name of the scheme. I think it is called a CLISS. I mean, if you develop housing, it is meant for the real estate sector, but industries can also benefit from it. If you set up dormitories or housing, etc. So of course, one MSME cannot do it, but if, let us say, all of you are in Cherlapalli, can 50 MSMEs come together and create a small worker housing very close to your factory, and you will get huge amount of subsidies and soft loan, etc. from the government under this Atmanirbhar scheme. If you tie it up with some developer, he can do it for you. So these are the things. The government will not do anything to bring back the labor. The industry has to treat them well, and they will come by themselves. That is my answer. And the last question which you have asked is about what about the dues of the industry. So again, we have fallen into an unfortunate situation. The government in this year's budget, which was introduced in February, many of you may recall, had provided for 1,500 crores to clear all the pending incentives till last year. Our pendency of incentive is around 2,100 crores, of which about 1,500 crores is still last financial year. So government had created that facility in the budget that in this financial year, we will make it zero. We'll make the pendency zero. But unfortunately, as soon as the budget was passed in February, from March onwards, we are all witnessing what is happening. Government resources have been impacted very, very badly. And just to pay salaries to our employees, government is taking loans, etc. So while the provision made in the budget is still there, but how much of it we will be able to really implement in reality will depend upon how much is our inflows, how do we balance the budget, and so on and so forth. But as an interim relief, there is a very strong discussion going on for the last few weeks that even if we are not able to give 1,500 crores and 1,500 crores and clear all the pendency till last year, can we clear a small part of incentives for all the units so that everyone gets some kind of relief in hand? Could it be 25%? Could it be 20%? Could it be 30%? So we are doing some kind of calculations. We are presenting it to the finance department, and hopefully whenever the next cabinet meeting happens where this subject is taken up, we may be able to present that case. So the intention is to help everyone. Typically, incentives are released based on seniority, but now given the fact that everyone is impacted, whether you are a senior or a non-senior, the idea is to give some support to everyone. And then if the budget, if our revenue streams improve, and if we are able to honor that 1,500 crores which was provided in the budget, then we would definitely be very keen to do that.
Yeah, Jayesh, I think my question was specific about when we owe money and you owe money, why there is a differentiation in the, when I owe money, I have to pay 18% on GST, and I have a lot of trouble to go through. When the government owes me money, not only on subsidy, we're not discussing subsidy alone. There is also large amount of money, and ST, sales tax refunds have not been given, and payment to some other contractors have not been received. That's the message we have received from various questions on various people.
Yes. So I know the point. I should have mentioned it. Now we are doing that exercise. So whatever is payable to you, suppose in different forms. It could be incentives. It could be GST reimbursement. It could be something else. Suppose let us say 100 rupees is due to you from the government. So can I create an instrument for which normally companies would have used that 100 rupees or whatever for some working capital purposes? They would have either ordered for some inventory, or they would have made some payments or cleared some other expenses. So whatever are your working capital requirements, can you take that from a bank without any additional guarantee? Whatever is due to you is pledged as a form of a government guarantee to the bank. And the understanding is that whenever we are able to release that, instead of releasing it to you, that is released to the bank in lieu of, and obviously a special rate of interest, etc., is created so that following this track does not become burdensome for you. So we are creating that instrument. The intention is to discuss it in the state level bankers committee and get their buy-in. In fact, when this Atmanirbhar loans were, when the Atmanirbhar scheme was announced, we had conducted a meeting of all the bankers in which we had raised this point that the government with, like our finance minister was present in that meeting, and he also supported this idea that let us create an instrument which will help the small industry. So we are on the job. I mean, very shortly you may hear something encouraging on this front.
I think that's a wonderful news, JSG. I think that's the best news I've heard. And I want to thank you for you and KTR and the entire government machinery for helping us. Can you put on the next slide, Shailaja? I think we lost you on the slide.
Sir, there is some other screen share happened from Mr. Prem Kankaria. I need to close that. Give me a minute, sir.
Yeah, take your time. No problem. JSG, the other point is about, I want to suggest that also to you think about how does one work with the government, and it's a question coming later on. Yes, there are some faults with some individual members, some group of members, but there are many people who also follow a lot of laws and rules in this country. Unfortunately, there's no model to differentiate a compliant and a non-compliant. For example, in GST, the GST compliance is agreed, there's a rating plan available. And we have been suggesting to the government that even state government for GST should create a compliance rating. So at least you can differentiate people who are genuine followers of labor laws, etc., from those who are not following. because everybody gets painted with the same brush. Like I've been an MSME for the last 30 years and we follow all the laws. But at the end of the day, I take the same flag as anybody MSME because we are the same brush. So I would like to also recommend to the government to think about how to differentiate between genuine law-abiding, compliance-oriented companies and MSMEs from those who don't. And therefore, if there is some way we can differentiate and treat them differently, that will be a great motivation for more and more people to become more compliant.
No, so I'll give short answers now because I would like to listen to Professor Bagchi and Mr. Mishra also. I do not want to take away all the time. So my short answer will be that industry can definitely create some kind of watchdog institutions. I mean, instead of people policing on you and finding out who is violating the law and who is kind of breaking the law, if there is some kind of a self-regulation and self-policing by the industry, the credibility of the industry goes up. I mean, if you yourself disclose that while there are 100 of us who are paying taxes and who are complying with everything, these are the 5 people who are violating. So if there is an industry related kind of a watchdog organization or a mechanism, internal mechanism, that will enhance the credibility overnight. You don't have to do anything else. But if you don't do that, those 5 bad examples or 5 rotten apples, they will give a bad name to everyone. And you will unfortunately face this, that unnecessarily you will also be suspected. Your image also will be tarnished. So there is no other solution except for self-regulation and self-monitoring and self-reporting.
And the last point is also law provides for the compliance rating, JSG. The GST rating is already provides for it. Income tax also now is thinking about it. So more and more we comply from the government law will be useful. Okay, over to Justice Saab. I think this is a question for you, and I think you've also been discussing at various forums about the same thing. This is probably the most difficult time for the entrepreneurs. If you see, the government has to prime the entrepreneurs to take the risk of restart. All the factors are stacked against us. Demand is supply chain is also impacted severe. Money supply is limited, and also the entrepreneurs feel the government and society have a very poor opinion of entrepreneurship as a community. And I think many of us speak for us and also many others who are not here today. And the mood is very depressed. Sometimes I ask myself, why am I sticking my neck out to do all this effort, to run around, get the demand, deliver the income tax to the government, GST to the government, everything we do. But why such a poor image? Therefore, Justice Sir, your question is the last 2 points. What can the government do and what we can do as a body to change this perception about entrepreneurship? Over to you, Justice Sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Muralidharan, and thank you, JSG, for being here this evening. Sir, we recently, after this COVID, FTCC had taken an initiative to conduct a survey on the industry outlook post-COVID-19 to assess the impact of this pandemic on the business prospects and expectations from the government, And we did about 300 members in various walks of the industries, from the large to the medium to the small. And we really found some interesting insights. Actually, we made a big report or a decent report out of it, which we will share it with you, sir, and of course all our members and our partners, the government too. I'll come to you this coming week with that. So in that, we just found that 60% of the respondents stated the economy may not go back to normalcy in the 9 months to 1 year, and 95% have stated all of their revenues got impacted negatively. Their reasons, what they say is the customer spending will come down, less money to spend, as you said, on the shares, like your impulsive buyings or anything for that matter might come down, and their spend will come. There will be a supply chain disruptions, etc. In such circumstances, it's actually the major demands from the industry to state government is to take adequate measures that will put liquidity into the hands of which could be the waiver of the demand charges or even the subsidies. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, you are considering at least giving a part of it to 30% or, some percentage of the whole thing to the entire community rather than go by the priority list. It will really help, sir, and we look forward to that. And any little help is taken well, and it will be acknowledged very deeply by the industry. So this is a great move because most of them are anyway due by more than a couple of years. So all of them should be given a chance, and that will be perfect if it comes out. But the speed at which it comes will always give the the proper medicine at the proper time, sir. So we request you to take an decision as early as possible. And if you see some of the incentives or the money that has been spent by the government on the industry or elsewhere in other states has been pretty good compared to our state. If you compare, I mean, that's unfortunate. In spite we being on the top of the indices compared to the other states in the ease of doing business or the revenues or the employment and all these things, we are rated very high. But unfortunately, when it came to the support or the decisions that has been taken, we are far lower than most of the states that are not on par with us or anywhere near to us. So that's something that intrigues us. I mean, what could be the mind of the government? What is there something that we are missing on it? So the government always looks at the industry as a revenue and employment generator. No doubt we have been doing all these years, but this unforeseen pandemic has done a lot of damage to the industry than the agriculture. So it's now the government should stand by the industry, sir, during these times and give us all the support. And any support in the short term, in the next 2 years, will also improve the confidence of the industry and make them come back to put more money into the businesses. We have brought this to your concerns and the ministers' concern in the state adequate number of times, and of course I really understand their challenges even at your end, but we definitely look forward to some off the shelf, it should be a quick response to this will always help us take it into the great heights. Sir, with regard to your grain, you were talking about the bags. There's a problem with the industry, their availability. Yes, we should look at the thoughts that different in the marketplace. Why are we still going by the bags? I mean, can't we use granaries, the silos that they're abroad? Yes, then the first answer that would come to me is that we are all short. All the farmers are all small holdings. We cannot get the same grain. We cannot store thousands of tons. But the marketplace is the same, and they can hold a granary. And when they see a Karnool Sona Masuri coming in, all of that can go into one. And when they bought it, they don't need bags at all. It reduces the cost of packaging. It reduces the cost of handling. And the rice millers themselves can have their own silos. And from truck to silos, it can be discharged. And grain handling will become so easy, so convenient, and less labor-oriented. So these are the things that we would like you to support. And this has been a proven method across the world, either it be in the Europe, or the East Europe, or even in US, Canada, everywhere. And I think we should just go by that instead of still going by the old methods. Yes, sir. As you rightly said, it's in the bigger interest the government takes the decisions. It's just not for the industry. We totally are with you on that, and the state subjects are paramount anywhere. But in the same scenario, could we have not done the question asked by most of our members is, could we not have done the testing or the tracing and the isolation and keeping it away to the normal levels than just letting it happen and go haywire everywhere? That's one thing that introduces us to. I mean, what could be the reason? Is it the herd immunity that you're looking at, or various theories that are popping up over the net all these years? As the sentiments, sir, also have played a major role in all this labor going back. I agree, maybe there are some places where they have been ill-treated or not treated well, I wouldn't say ill-treated. So, but that could not be the case on 100% of the time. And, even in cases where they are being really taken care of, they had to leave at the first instance because of various other sentiments or family issues that cropped up with them. So industry per se has been very trying to keep them hard at bay. But as you rightly said, they are also coming back now. I mean, it's not, we have seen in some of the industries that people are trying to come back. And at this point of time, sir, any help from the government to the industry, to the society here at large will be most welcome, and is the most needed thing at this part of the art. Thank you very much, sir. And, I will definitely work with you, as you said, for coming up with new ideas to implement, wherein we change our thinking. The paradigm shift should be there from the older times to the post-COVID times. Thank you very much.
A specific question, Justice, for you.
Is there?
Yes, I think you play. I played it again. Play it again, please.
I didn't see that. Sorry.
Comments, but you not replied to this question. So kindly look at that question and then try and answer this question.
Did I see that?
The way we have done it is now we're trying to position specific questions. The dialogue is specific.
No, this has been from.
Thanks for replying. I'm good. You have covered a lot of points. The dialogue with Jayesh is also important. So what you have done is perfectly correct. So kindly go ahead and show the screen, please. Shailaja. The question about trust between the industry.
Yeah, it's a FICCI question. Somehow I'm giving the share screen. Someone is removing my share screen, sir. Team, please wait for my share screen to go. It's getting deactivated again and again. Just a sec. Is it visible now, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I'm going to the fifth question. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
This is a question for you. How they talked about entrepreneurs not being valued. They feel that they are not being valued by the government or by the society. And there is a feeling of despondency to many of the entrepreneurs because at this COVID time, the risk has gone up significantly. They have to stake a lot more, put a lot more money, restart the economy, restart the supply chain. So the question is, what can the government do? What can the industry bodies do to change their perception about the entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs?
Sir, let me tell you, I mean, most of the industry has been a disillusioned lot, sir. There are very few industries which were on the essential commodities, and they did run at least to some percentage of their production. You know, they got away with some minimal costs, or the damages were lowered. But for the others, where they had to really pay in, and when the support from the government in terms of ESI, PF, nothing was happening. And the PF thing was such a sham. I mean, they came up with those riders where none of us, I mean, I would say in the small scale industry, at least if I say Cherlapalli, where I am in, there are about 1,000 industries. I wouldn't see even 6 or 7 industries eligible for that. It's not that they didn't pay their ESIs or PFs, they have been paying well. And, they just said that 15,000 and less should be 90%, or, all those 2 riders that, and they should be less than 100 employees. So we have been actually told that we are getting something, but we never got. I mean, that's been the case all along, either it be in the budgets or now it's been always the trick game that they have been playing. And so the industry is disillusioned because right now they're cash strapped. And the bankers, yes, of course, but for SBI, which has been proactive in distributing most of their loans, none of the other big banks have been forthcoming. And of course, as JSG just said, the minister had taken, Harish Rauji has had a meeting on the thing and they had conveyed, but so many of them come up with things that they have not come up with the proposal. The government is still there waiting for this question, that answer. So they are not distributed any of the monies from the banks. But for SBI, which I heard from Mishra Ji the other day, that they did 50% of the loans. That's commendable only from a particular sector. And most of the entrepreneurs who are dealing with the other banks are left high and dry. And the government should come in with some thing to cover their losses in terms of the power subsidies or the power charges, tariffs, or it be the, the taxations in terms of the refunds on not the payments of the subsidies. This could have helped, and the government policy of keeping the industry alive should be more dynamic at this point of time, sir. And everybody, we have made a lot of report on which I will anyway submit to the government in this coming week. So, but we are a very disillusioned lot, sir, unfortunately. And not that we are untruthful or we have been very rightful in our taxations or even our payments of the government dues and everything. But we got the last one because we don't hold much of the vote. That's what people feel like. We are not having that sort of clout or say with the government as on today, in spite of generating the income or the revenues.
Thank you, Justice Saab. I think we'll go to the next person, CGM, Mr. Mishra. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. I think Mr. Mishra, OP Mishra, CGM of...
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Mr. Muralidharan and Jai Ranjan, sir. Good afternoon to all of you.
You have been one of our stars, sir. State SBI and the CGM and the entire circle of Hyderabad have got a lot of positive feedback from some of our members for going out to the MSME sector, asking people, helping them. And I'm saying from my own personal experience of being an SBI customer, I think I've always been happy that I'm very grateful to God that I chose SBI 30 years ago to be my partner. So you are a star today. So the question is, SBI is the banker to the nation and has the capacity to lead the liquidity infusion in MSME. All the other banks will follow SBI lead. Now, but there are several challenges. The MSME loan portfolio has always been not seen as a very attractive portfolio to a bank. So these are the 5 or 6 questions. I would like you to read it, pick up in any order that you like. And then you can choose to answer.
Sir, first, I will not agree that this loan is not attractive for us. Yes, I fully agree that in the last 10 years or last 20 years, there was some shift because this increased sickness in MSME sector and easy in giving loans to housing and retail and car loans, all these things. Bankers shifted to retail from MSME. It was more profitable, more convenient, and a lot of sickness was there in MSME sector. But again, I'm telling for SBI, sir, MSME is the closest to our heart. And even this COVID time, before this Atmanirbhar scheme was announced by Government of India, before that, COVID scheme was introduced by us at 7.50% interest. And we're the first bank to introduce this scheme. And I'm happy to tell under that scheme also, we sanctioned loans amounting to, sir, roughly 415 crores to roughly 4,000 units. And as Mr. Jasti told, in this Atmanirbhar scheme of GCL, our share in total leads in Telangana state, number-wise is only 24%. 24% leads belong to State Bank of India, but our share in sanction is 55% number-wise and 46% amount-wise. So we have sent letters to each and every eligible borrower and sanctioned loans to 44,000 customers as on date. And out of our total leads, we have already disbursed more than 600 crores to customers. So this segment is very, very, very dear to us. And again, I'm telling all of you, this interest or scheme is not only one issue. For a bank, for MSME, this process and structure is very important. So just to again shift to MSME from retail, in Telangana state, now we have 53 branches only for MSME loan. They will not do any other loan except MSME loan. And there are 4 RMs exclusively for encouraging MSME advances so that, and their KRA is only to encourage and finance MSME units so that they are not distracted by housing loans or car loans and they achieve their budgets. So this shows our total dedication for this MSME. And I'm telling again, this portfolio is very attractive to us. But again, next question is what can be done to make it more attractive? I'm again telling only one issue, why we need much more due diligence. Because there are many cases, especially in this part of the country, where people take money, divert money, and due to fraud by some persons, bank has to strengthen its due diligence, and genuine persons have to suffer because bank has to become tight because and they have to make their norms more stringent. So I will request this MSME and this FICCI here, please try to identify such customers. And I will request all of you, if anybody is found not NPA, but willful defaulter or committing any fraud, they should not be a member of any such industry bodies. To inculcate this culture of discipline, any account can become NPA due to various reasons, but diversion of funds, fraudulent measures, or willful default. If anybody is found indulging in such activities, I will request FICCI and FTCCI to ensure that such persons are discouraged in these industry bodies, so that bankers are very confident and comfortable in financing to good units.
So we'll take the advice, sir. Very good advice. I think we'll take it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, tell you one example in Patna Circle, in Bihar. There is one progressive farmer, Mr. Sudhanshu Kumar. He was such a nice farmer. Without his recommendation, we are giving loans to farmers. And none of the loans sanctioned by the bank and recommended by him went bad because his diligence was much more stronger than bank's due diligence. So like that, I will request all of you, please, we have to seek who are the black sheeps who are tarnishing the image of the people and MSME units. Then, sir, this 59-minute loan scheme is a very wonderful scheme, but frankly, it is not very popular. Why? Because people have to feed their particulars, and sometimes we feel that the chartered accountants are not allowing them to go directly to the bank because maybe that may impact their business with the units. But it's a very simple scheme, and bank is very ready and partner with FICCI to again take a class, 1 or 2 days class, to have some learning to the units so that they can come only through the MSME 59 portal and not through any physical mode, so that we can also track the delay or TAT in sanctioning the loans, because the TAT is very, very, very low in 59 minutes portal. So please tell your all units to only go through this portal for loans up to 5 crores.
The bank guarantee scheme, the omnibus bank guarantee scheme, how successful has it been? That 4 crores MSME loans up to the central government CG central guarantee scheme.
EGCL, not EGCL. So EGCL, so it's very successful. Again, I'm telling, but many persons have not taken disbursement. They have sanctioned loans to many persons, and today our sanction is.
Shailaja, put the question back, please. Slide
Yes,
back.
sir. Yes.
Sir, State Bank has sanctioned around 42,000 accounts and 1,100 crores under this GCL, but our disbursement is only 663 crores. So through this body also, I'll request all my customers to take this money and utilize for their developmental needs.
Yeah. The question number 5, sir, the MSME data and research, can you read that? Because the FICCI SBI chairman also confirmed.
Yeah. This we can think of how to go ahead, but again, I think this research and data, we have also research unit at Mumbai, and you have also some research unit at your Delhi and Hyderabad. So we can also agree to share this data depending on the customer's acceptance. And but again, I believe that this data sharing is very important for healthy revival and healthy development of the MSME units. But let me see what we can do on this count.
Wonderful, sir. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
You've been very pointed in your reply. I think we take those feedback. Next slide, please. I think it's for Dr. Bakshi. Next slide. I think all of you will be again coming back on the incentives. When we talk about benefits to the industry, again, we're one more round. I'm going to talk to all of you. So please stay back. Yeah. Dr. Bakshi.
Yeah.
The question in the background is there in the slide. I don't think I need to read it. I can request you to kindly respond as you deem fit. If you want an opening statement also, you can do it.
Yeah, I thought I would just first of all thank you, Mr. Muralidharan, for inviting me. And it's always a pleasure to listen to Jayesh Ranjan ji, a civil servant whose heart is at the right place. So taking cue from 2 things which he has said, I would just like to give some thoughts to both FICCI and the government. One is while COVID has disrupted the economy very badly, there is also opportunities which Jayesh Ranjan ji said that PPE and mass production is one of those. So in order for some of the MSMEs to shift to new kinds of businesses, it's very important for us to create or to tell them that there's a whole database of expired patents which are no longer applicable, but still the idea is relevant and germane, on the basis of which millions and billions of dollars of businesses are being made. If our MSMEs are able to just understand which patents have expired and how those patents work, what is the mechanism for creating a device based on those expired patents, they would be really benefited. I think from the industry body side or from the government side, somebody has to tell them that there's a whole lot of knowledge available there, which has never been tapped. I mean, how did China come here? China came through imitation, reverse engineering, in a very structured way. We have also, some of us, in some industries, they have done reverse engineering, but not in a structured way. I think a structured way would be, and we are not doing anything illegal. I mean, patents which have expired, they are out in the public domain. If anybody can take those designs and make their products. I think, especially in COVID times, when a lot of opportunities are going to come up in health and medical devices sector, I think a concerted effort of how to re-engineer those instruments, those equipments right here in India needs to be attempted. One attempt has been very successful in creating ventilators, for example, but many such more structured such imitations and re-engineering can be done. So that's my first thought. And taking cue from Jayesh Ranjanji's second idea of bringing in jute industry from Bengal and setting up jute mills for gunny sacks and so on and so forth, I think it's a very, very welcome initiative. And one of the other things I would suggest is, we have always in Telangana specifically, we have been toying with the idea of high-tech industries. There is a whole lot of opportunities available in the low-tech, low capital intensive kind of industry. For example, toy manufacturing. I mean, toy manufacturing is such an industry. It's like $1.5 billion right now in India, but the global market is 2 lakh crore. And I'll give you just one example. Guangdong is one place in China which employs 7 lakh people, and 70% of the toys of the world comes from that place. So if we can position Telangana for such industry, which does not require a lot of learning curve, which is relatively easy to understand, and the local industry has the wherewithal, it's basically plastic injection and other such techniques which is used, and local creativity. There's a place called Channapatna, which is between Mysore and Bangalore. I mean, there are a lot of skills of wooden toy making already exists. I mean, we can leverage on these things and create an industry which is going to be some kind of an anchor to the other MSMEs in and around this place. So those are my first initial 2 thoughts. I think especially the patent idea, if you really take it seriously, I think a lot of industry MSMEs are going to benefit, because individual MSMEs do not have the wherewithal to understand how a WIPO site operates and how to download from a WIPO site, what are the design parameters. But if there is some helping hand, and ASCII is, I am offering my institution services right now. I mean, we will be more than happy to partner with FICCI and the government to bring. It's just knowledge which is going to be transferred to people, and then they can adopt it, so that we can do re-engineering in a much more structured manner. The questions I see is, has lockdown has impacted industry? Yes, I think people have much more knowledgeable people have spoken to me, spoken before. My 2 bits on that is, yes, if it's in the interests of the public at large, of course, lockdown has to be implemented. But I think a few smarter ways of handling it can also be approached, which I think FICCI and ASCII together are trying to prepare some kind of a concept note, in which we are trying to understand whether there are smarter approaches to, because the best estimate that we have is this virus is going to be with us for the next 2 years. It's going to be here with us. I mean, we'll be very glad if some vaccine comes through, but realistic estimates and WHO's own estimate is that this is going to be with us for 2 long years. And in 2 long years, there will be certain phases in which lockdown is going to be a very, very tempting measure for the government. But we have to look at smarter measures as well. And those are my 2 thoughts, but I cannot see the other questions.
Thank you. The question again, can you put it back? I think the question is the same about the think tank. I think we talked about it. JSG, I think we are now working on 3 of us, FTCCI, FICCI and ASCII are working together to prepare a small document on how to increase hospital capacity and how do we structure the post-COVID scenario better and how do we change the narrative from avoiding COVID to living with COVID narrative. So we are working on something. But I think the second question was, how does one create a think tank where all 3 of us come together? ASCII is a very big reputation, especially you work with governments very well. So like company like you, state, industry, how will it possible to come together? Why is it not happening? What's your thought? Why are we not able to create a co-partnership approach so far?
Well, frankly speaking, I should first take the blame on myself and my community, which is the academic community. You know, we sometimes sit in ivory towers imagining an ideal world, and we would rarely go out of our own comfort zone to listen to what is the problem in the industry or what is the problem with the government. But ASCII is one institution which is a little different. We have fairly good understanding of how the government operates, and we regularly do problem solving for the government as well as for the industry. That's why we are in a position where we can be a bridge between pure blue-blooded academia and industry, somewhere in between organization which understands the theoretical underpinnings of academia and the problems of industry, and hence will probably be in a position to deliver solutions which are practical and relevant. And with we also have a little bit of, considerable trust. The government trusts us in many of the, because our quality of reports have been over the years rather well. So whatever ASCII comes in, we bring to the board that level of trust also, because we are solely driven by public purpose and nothing else, which the government of India and all the state governments know very well. So I think it's well-meaning advice that industry think tank should be created. And I think we are taking the baby steps, FICCI, ASCII and FTCI. And we would love to have government also integrated into this process so that there is seamless transfer of information and knowledge, and something concrete comes out from these problem solving initiatives. Otherwise, what academia does is it's in its own space. Many a times it has got several good solutions to offer, but as they say, you know, jungle mein mor nacha kisne dekha. So the more has to come out and dance so that people can see, and therein lies the solutions. So I think a think tank which Jayesh Ranjanji himself had thought of quite a long time back, and over the years we have been discussing, I think is in the fitness of things, and it will serve the government as well as the industry well, and of course the academia well. So it's a win-win for all the 3 stakeholders. I really hope it takes off in right hand.
Thank you, Dr. Bakshi. Next slide, please. Last 2 slides are only on some of the recommendations we have got from various parties. Next slide, please. Next slide, yeah. These are the 3 state governments, some initial thought processes on what they are doing for micro and small MSME industry. Karnataka is talking about self-certification. They're talking about industrial townships for MSMEs exclusively. Kerala is planning for specially skilling returning Indians for MSME sector. AP government the very, very powerful restart package. I think they are doing a lot of publicity on it lately. They've released pending incentive for a state which is supposed to be far poorer in terms of resource mobilization. They've released the incentives. They're offering collateral free loans for MSMEs. They have also promised preferential market access to the MSMEs in the government procurement. So some of Andhra Pradesh government seem to be doing a very, very interesting work in this area. Next slide. Now, in this context, some of the recommendations we are putting for JSG and others to consider. Next slide, please. Yeah, first and foremost, I think what we saw in the government of India was a cabinet ranked minister for MSME makes all the difference. I think it's time for the state of Telangana, and we are recommending it with all humility that somebody will listen to us. But a cabinet ranked minister for MSMEs and a separate department of MSMEs will make a big difference as it's making in central government right now. Second, to attract MSMEs, we need to come out with a system very similar to TPAS. I know TS Pass is also valid for MSME, but we feel that there must be something we have to look at it more closely and make it more attractive for MSME to short the cycle time. They must get the same attention like large companies. Many of us feel the large companies got to get a lot of attention from the government, but small companies don't get. So a separate department or separate process will be helpful. And for import substitution, they're talking about allotment of land, simplified funding, and subsidy of 20% of the investment. This is again a suggestion from some member. The fourth one is about MSME partnership summits. I think there was a talk about creating this for some time ago. Exclusive partnership for only MSMEs. It should be at the district level, which along with the MSME parks, which could be sector specific or geography specific. This will be very helpful. Next slide. Wage subsidy. We have been talking about it for a long time. Instead of giving a direct cash transfer to somebody who's sitting at home, the unemployed, if we give the same money as a wage subsidy, the employer can add his component and multiply that money in the hand of the unemployed youth. So I think one of the suggestions is to also look at wage subsidy. The government has started in repaying or paying part of the PF payment right now. I think we are recommending the state government should take the initiative. Goa already did some work on wage subsidy for domestic enterprises. And the fourth one is encouraging and pushing large corporations in the state to pay MSMEs on time, because we need to have some kind of administrative mechanism like MSME Samadhan in the central level. It's an idea to think about how do we encourage more and more small MSMEs to declare whether outstandings are due from the state government or central government or from MSME large companies. Co-creation of MSME policies with the think tank, I already talked about it. I think it's another suggestion. Next slide. These are some of the quickly I put together suggestions based on the feedback. So I think JSD, I think you got 10 minutes time. I would like to go request for Sir Jayesh Ranjan to start off with some of the comments, some feedback on the suggestions and any other idea he has on what can be done to make Telangana the golden state. Over to you, Jayesh, and we'll go in the reverse order.
See, the suggestions are definitely very useful, no doubt about it. I'm sure all of you have evaluated multiple options and then you have come up with these precise recommendations and solutions. So definitely these are very valuable. And at the government level also, we will examine them very, very closely. Some of the things are also well aligned with our own plans. So for example, we ourselves want to set up a exclusive industrial park for MSMEs. And some of you may be aware that in Dandu Malkapur, which is on the outskirts of Hyderabad city, we have set up the first large industrial park, almost 400 acres. And the plan is actually to make it as big as 2,000 acres. So it is close to Hyderabad, all infrastructure is available. And as your recommendation also says, we are offering land at a very, very concessional rate here with all available infrastructure, continuous power, continuous water, and so on and so forth. Similarly, the Kerala example of mapping the skills and ensuring that whoever is returning, their services are made available to MSMEs. That is indeed a very, very needed solution and a very practical solution. In Telangana, of course, large number of people have not yet come back from these Gulf countries where they have gone, but we do expect once more and more flights start coming and when the ticket prices become very affordable, we also anticipate, see, there is a big diaspora of Telangana origin in 6 of those Gulf countries, including Kuwait and UAE and Saudi Arabia, Oman, etc. So that Kerala example is very good, and definitely we would like to emulate it. And the other points also that you have made on how do you support MSMEs by looking at separate policies, separate departments, separate ministry. Some of these may not happen because, as you know, Telangana, because the state has become small in size, the size of the officers available, the size of the ministry, that is also restricted now. So under the existing circumstances, to have a separate department may or may not work out. But definitely right now, as long as people are able to focus attention on MSMEs, and within the industries department also, we have distribution of work. So our commissioner of industries, actually somehow we forgot to bring him in this conference. He would have been also a very good useful resource to participate in. But even if he is not here, please engage with him on a regular basis. The commissioner of industry, I have given him no other responsibility but MSMEs. All the other work, like for example, how do you attract pharma companies, or how do you attract textiles companies, or what do you do with some other sectors in the present anti-China sentiment scenario? How do you position yourself as an attractive investment destination? All these works are done by other people in my team, and the commissioner of industry is solely looking after MSME. So please guide him also. He's not a new person to the industries department. He has worked before also, but lots of post-COVID realities have changed the dynamics of MSMEs, and therefore what used to work for them 5 years ago or 6 years ago needs to be reviewed now. So I would, and this think tank which you are setting up, while you have taken up this COVID hospitalization, etc., as an immediate task, but at some point in time, let us also think about some of the good ideas that we have discussed about MSMEs, MSME financing, the internal self-regulatory mechanism, then some of the bottlenecks which they have faced due to COVID. How do they find solutions? So think tank could be a very good forum to brainstorm, generate good ideas, find out what will be practical, and then take them forward. So I'm appreciative of all this exercise that all of you have done, particularly in FICCI and FTCCI, and also in ASCII. So my compliments to all of you, and let this not be a one-off kind of thing. So let us create a small subgroup within or in the task force itself, in the think tank itself, which can continue some of these conversations in future.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Over to Dr. Bakshi. The reverse order. Can you put back the slide, please, Shalaja? Yeah, closing comments and whatever your suggestions are. We're just closing this discussion.
Well, I think to start with, as I said, if we can structure by capital and labor is two of the issues which and land which industry bodies keep on requesting the government for concessions. I think ideas are also one of the issues which needs to be brought into focus. MSMEs have got a lot of creativity, and in most parts of the world, the actual innovations come from MSMEs. And I think it is time to look at putting re-engineering in a structured manner. I gave one idea of how to bring expired patents, that database, how to bring it to the MSME community so that they can benefit from looking at expired patents and improving their products and going into new product avenues. That is one concrete idea which we can think about. But ideas need to be brought into focus once more, especially because of in crisis situations. Capital and labor will always be issues. But the one thing which is going to bring a company out of a problem is freshness of ideas. I think those are some of the things which we need to work on.
Thank you. Mishra ji, any closing comments from you on what can we do to promote?
Sir, as I told, this credit and interest is one major reason for MSME growth.
Mishra sir, can you please put on your video also? Video
yeah.
on.
One second. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, now it is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sir, this credit is one important factor, but I don't think that that is the only factor which is responsible for credit growth in MSME segment. But many factors like labor, issues, receivables, positive mood. There is one question and again one observation. For the last 1 to 2 years, not only after COVID, not many people are not coming with some MSME units for sanction of the loans. They come for trading units, other units. But we only sanction today some takeovers from HDFC Bank or some Axis Bank or PNB or OBC. but lot many fresh people are not coming with application for MSME units. What is the reason? I think reason is beyond credit. Reason is some positivity should be there in the environment. How people should be encouraged. And Mr. Muridharan told how this sector people should get more respect in the eyes of the government, also bankers, also and public also. As a banker, I'm telling all of you, I have a person to contact for MSME at all places, Hyderabad, Secunderabad, Warangal and Nalgonda, only for MSME. They are ready to guide you, advise you and sanction loans in the case of need. But we have to think all together, government also, FICCI also and bank also, what more we can do for really improving the MSME in this Telangana state. The government is very proactive, I'm telling again, but something is missing. Due to that, they are not coming in good numbers.
Thank you, sir. Mishraji, I agree with you. MSME Day celebration, I was there.
Yeah.
SBI is taking a lead at the MD level and chairman level to show a lot of interest. We are very grateful to SBI. And I can promise you that at FICCI level and FACCI level, we will do our best to support our industry and work closely with SBI.
And so I'm again telling once again, sir, if you receive any complaint regarding GECL in respect of SBI, please everybody can send a mail to me, CGM's email address in Hyderabad, and it can be addressed only within 1 day.
Thank you, sir. I love to hear that. I think Justice Sahab.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, just as a closing thing, for the new industry, there's MSMEs to invest, especially during this anti-China rhetoric that's going on now. It's a great opportunity, but nevertheless, you know, an entrepreneur should be given the due respect and, you know, the trust that he has. We have so many organizations that we have to report to, you know, so many inspections, so many licenses, so many of the... Is there some way that we can, you know, as JSJ said, you know, we should have our own regulations, you know, which we build our own self-regulation mechanisms. That's a great idea, but, you know, or even giving it on to a private party to check, and the onus is on the entrepreneur to keep everything right. Like, let's say a boiler department, we have, and it's my responsibility to keep it in good shape as in any other thing, because if anything happens to it, it's a loss of life, loss of property, loss of production. So we have these so many restrictions on that, and it can be privatized, and you know how difficult it is these days to get a certification done on these things. I mean, I was just talking about a simple one example, but that's on numerous things. We have those things in the electricity department. Everywhere we are treated with distrust sometimes, and you know, yeah, I agree there are people who misuse that, but then they should be penalized to an extent where they don't even recover. So that sort of fear can be created, but you know, you should not take it generalized and you know, put everybody in the same shoes. So this is where we can actually entice. It's not just the subsidies. People really do not care about the money that comes in. See, today there's 6 years, 7 years, it didn't come. Some of them are still surviving because of their own efficiencies and levels. So we have to improve upon their efficiencies sometimes by adding by the infrastructure or whatever be the means, and make industry grow bigger and bigger on its own. Entrepreneur skills are definitely there, and people are smart, very smart in these areas and regions, and I'm sure they can take it up with you know, a lot of zest and speed.
Thank you, Justice Sahab. I think we close with this statement. What Mishraji said: we as associations must not allow somebody to be a member who is a willful defaulter, who is a willful has an experience with the government or this on a default. Unless we give some kind of credibility or membership, we have a challenge. Then we can go and tell Mishraji, please, like, you know, I'll give you 2 examples. In a society, the society decides about individual members' behavior. There is a code of conduct for a society. If you're living in a housing society, there's a code of conduct. You can't do whatever you want in a housing society. In a SHG, self-help group pays a price if one member defaults. So similarly, as associations, we should also become more and more careful and become the body which evaluates and throws out people who are willful defaulters or who have a clear case of willful neglect or willful outcome. So I want to leave with that thought, and I want to thank all of you. There are a lot of questions, but I think time has run out, especially JSG. Thank you very much for coming, and I thank all the panelists, and it's been a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Mr. Murli too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
No, Mr. Murli should give a vote of thanks.
Yeah, Murli Krishna Reddy will be coming at the last. I'm requesting him to give the vote of thanks for this. Murli Garu?
Yes, sir. Am I on, right, Shailaja?
You are. Shailaja, put the last slide.
Yeah,
It's
give me a
indeed-
sec, sir.
Yes, yes. It is indeed my honor and privilege to propose a vote of thanks and also to sum up the dialogue that has taken place this evening. And I just want to say at the outset that COVID crisis has created an unprecedented situation for everybody: government, trade bodies, industrialists, common workers, farmers, and everybody. It is something which no single entity can solve. Government alone cannot solve, industry cannot alone solve, labor alone cannot solve this problem. This requires a huge joint effort, as our own PM has time and again exhorted us to do, and our own Honorable CM has exhorted us to do. Today, we are indeed privileged to have our Principal Secretary for Industry and Commerce and IT with us. He has been kind enough to spend almost 1.5 hours with us. That shows his commitment, that shows his devotion to the state. He's being an officer, he will always keep low profile. But for Telangana to achieve this level of notice in the country, and for Hyderabad to catch the attention of the world, Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, Honorable Secretary for Industry, has played a stellar role. We are indeed grateful to him. He's very simple, easy to access. That's because of his educational background. He understands business issues. He's a wonderful person at individual level and approachable, and we thank him immensely. And we thank other participants, SBI Mishra ji, Jasti ji, and ASCII Director General Bakshi ji, for having given their valuable input. I just want to sum up before closing, if I may be permitted another 2 minutes by the chairman.
Yes, sir.
The Principal Secretary has rightly pointed out that there should be self-regulation among the trade bodies. How and what, it is up to us to deliberate and come up with at least some solutions. And Mr. Jayesh Ranjan has also told us that we, particularly in the smaller sector, should follow pragmatic and good and caring labor policies. Most of us do, some of us don't. That is a concern which he has pointed out, and we should take it in the right spirit, and we should practice that, because end of the day, workers are our partners. That should be the motto, and that should be inculcated by the trade bodies. Trade bodies, we have a tendency to go on complaining against government, but we should also look at introspect and clean up our own act in terms of compliance with regulations, good labor practices. These are the things which are very well taken, sir. Mr. Jayesh Ranjan, your advice is accepted, taken with good spirit. And I want to thank the Secretary for telling us that he's actively working on paying at least some amount to the MSMEs towards alleviating the problem. One more thing he is grappling with, which we welcome, is, of course, this was the suggestion made last time with the Honorable Minister. He also received it very well. And end of the day, it is the Secretary who has to implement it, that whatever is due to us, if government can give a certificate or an acknowledgement which can be used as a collateral and draw the money from the bank, that will be a great help. That is a great news from the Secretary. We thank him for that. Then I would like to thank Mishra ji from SBI for his forthright support to MSMEs And he has gone to the extent of saying, if you don't get it under that scheme, come to me with a complaint. I'm available 24 hours. That's wonderful news. We thank him for that. And also what he said is, we as trade bodies should not be encouraging black sheep to play a big role in the trade bodies. Compliance, like our own chairman, FICCI chairman has said, like hosting societies, we should also have a code of conduct for our members, and we should follow good practices. Then we can demand from government, then we can demand from banks, then we can demand from society. So I think we should do that. Then one more thing, Professor Bakchi, Director General, has said is there are so many opportunities in the post, COVID situation because of negative sentiment against China. There are so many expired patents which can be exploited by MSMEs. I think in this idea must be picked up by our secretary and create a cell probably under the Commissioner of Industry to see what are these which can be exploited. If we can build up a bank of these expired patents and give that information to our MSME, it could really help. And finally, I would like to conclude by saying governments all over the world have been giving a helping hand to small businesses. Okay, our governments have huge difficulty in terms of cash, but at least they should build sentiment. They should support us. Like Mr. Jasti says, entrepreneur must be respected. He's the backbone of the industrial economy and should not be seen always with suspicion, should be respected. Of course, governments are working towards that. And I also thank the secretary for appreciating the concept of think tank and how it can help. And he has volunteered. This should not be a one-time event. We should have a constant dialogue. And that's the idea of all our trade bodies. And with this kind of person as at the helm in the industry department, we are really blessed. We can have a meaningful dialogue with the secretary and his team and take the MSMEs and other industry issues forward. And to conclude, India has always been, every government after government has been pro weaker sections. The weaker sections, even if they make mistakes, governments have been very, very liberal to them. A lot of times, small farmers have not paid back the loans. Loans have been waived. It's not because government did not want to enforce the rules, but they understood the difficulties of weaker sections. Similarly, MSMEs are the weaker sections of the industry. Yes, Tatas will follow all the rules. Yes, big IT industries will follow all the rules. Small man has got huge problems, please understand. And secretary understands these things. And government, being pro weaker sections, should consider MSMEs as weaker sections and give a helping hand, support them, build them, because some of them are going to become big industrialists. Some of them are going to grow into bigger people. And they are the people who employ skilled and semi-skilled workers. So with these remarks, I would like to conclude that it has been a useful dialogue. And I thank all the participants and all the organizers in particular. And special thank you to the Honorable Secretary, who has been wonderful by his staying here. And thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. We're winding up for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.